Welcome to the 440, where we explore the art of building creative, sustainable, and meaningful lives in music. Today we talked with pianist, teacher, and entrepreneur David Chang. From discovering his gift for teaching at just 13 to building one of the most innovative adult piano programs in the country, David shares his philosophy of consistent, meaningful inputs, the importance of mindset in both music and life, and why he believes business, life, and self are all forms of art. Let's dive in. Welcome, David. Thanks so much for being here. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, and there's a million things I want to dive into and just get right into the meat of things. But one is, how you been? What's been going on with you?
I've been good. I can't complain. Life has its ups and downs, but business is good, family is good, and I'm just creating art and helping people. So just going with the flow.
Yeah, and I thought we met. We were just talking about this. We met years ago. It feels like when you were just really getting this big project going, and where you were really hammering on this niche that you were wanting to work with adult students who were serious. And I loved this about you. You had this really technical approach to pedagogy, but also really passionate approach to it. You were creating a ton of content. You had this great structure for how you were building your business. And I love that at the center of it, you were thinking, these are the people who I serve. This is the level of intensity of student that I want. You wanted serious adult students. And so that's a great place to start. How did that occur in your universe?
Sure. Well, it really didn't come about all of a sudden. Like you said, I've been teaching since I was a teenager. I've been developing these methods since I was 16 or 17 as well too. And like most piano teachers, I started out teaching many, many kids, and somehow my little business had an explosion of interest that started about 7 years ago or so. At this point, actually, well, that was the time that it really started before I was a contractor at those piano schools, like a lot of people were when they're a little bit younger. And I mean, I started with a smaller number of adult students. I started realizing, I love teaching kids, but it's starting to become more satisfying to work with people on deep strategy and mindset rather than telling children to sit down at this point. So, still love the kids, but it just became more artistically gratifying. And so I was fortunate to experience extremely high demand first in New York City and then nationally after the pandemic started with virtual lessons. And I just gravitated more and more in that direction. I was fortunate that I was able to then be more and more selective, frankly, looking for more detail oriented people, patient, coachable. The waiting list turned into interviews very quickly. Usually I'll do a 90-minute or 2 hour interview. And so it was not an overnight success. It just came about little by little. And by serious, I don't mean somebody who is practicing even like an hour a day or something. It's not a practice requirement. It's not a level of playing requirement. It's somebody who is like you, very, very open, very, very fun to work with, but somebody that's committed, like they'll show up to lessons, they'll make up lessons, they love the piano, they take this craft seriously. So yeah, so that's what it is I'm looking for. And I just kind of iterated and was able to, I guess, niche down more over time.
Yeah, and I've really appreciated watching your journey because you were at a moment where you could have burned out and done, and
That's true.
instead you leaned into, I love this idea of what you enjoy doing. You loved the mindset stuff. There's all these, you have great social media of you on trains when you're traveling, memorizing pieces. And it's so, and
I didn't
it's,
realize you saw that.
I, yeah,
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. And I love that because it's really motivational to where it's like, oh, I can practice away from my instrument. And that does resonate with people who are, and because I had excuse me, I had a lot of students the same way who were adults, professional, really serious in that they were very good at problem solving, committing the time, adding the discipline. They wanted to bring this value into their life. And those students were really awesome. They're so fun to teach because although, this is something I always said to my adult students that I taught is yes, an 8-year-old would have a different facility or flexibility to their tendons and their minds. but you have focus and problem solving and the time and the discipline that you can really take a serious adult who wants to develop themselves an instrument. And if you give them the right tools and the mindset, over the course of a year or two or three, they can make just insane progress. And that's really gratifying because it brings so much joy to their lives. And you get to know them. These people are stressed out. They're managing companies, they're doing surgeries. Their music to them, they are just sucking the marrow out of it. That's their time every week and every day. And I'm sure, do you experience a lot of that? I'm guessing that's where your joy comes from.
Oh, and helping people to relieve their stress from their work and so on too. Yeah, absolutely. I've had some big insights because I mean you were just mentioning that adults honestly have advantages over children too. It's not often talked about. I mean, we have bigger hands on average. We have fully developed brains. We have some emotional self-regulation. We can understand strategy and mindset. We're independent. And so, I mean, if everybody's a prodigy, then maybe the child has the advantage of time, but adults still have a lot of advantages. But I've realized they have different obstacles as well, too. And so when I do this 90-minute or 2 hour student interview, it truly is mindset training right off the bat. I'll tell them this is to greatly increase your odds of long-term success. Because I've noticed the adults on average, they would often flake out a lot more than the children and the families because they are both the parent and the child. Like when they whine and complain,
Hmm.
they've got to bring themselves to the lesson, and they don't have that 24/7 accountability from an outside person. So I'll tell them, everybody has personal things, work things, family things, holidays, travel, even things like job changes and moves are fairly predictable things. And but this just derails all of the adult students. And I tell them, humans usually relax when they have social proof. So those reviews that you've seen of mine, I mean, all of those other people had travel too. You think they're leading perfect lives. They're not. They have full-time jobs, they have families, they're stressed from work, but somehow once you're in the midst of it, it's often already too late to reach them. They think everybody else is leading this perfect life where they're not. And I tell them often children, not always, but sometimes children are lying about practicing. And so then the parent will still bring them, whereas the adult feels really bad, especially if they're a high achiever. Then they rationalize, let me practice more before I go to the lesson. And then often that, they'll just kind of disappear after a while. So one of my biggest successes is in telling people to show up messily, imperfectly, didn't have time to practice. Sometimes, obviously, it's better if you can practice. But one of my biggest successes has been relieving all the guilt from when inevitably they have times when they cannot practice.
That is an interesting concept because these people that are coming to you, they have expectations on themselves. So they probably
Yes,
this can commitment can be another source of stress for them, and that's not the intention. The intention is the
absolutely.
release. You're doing this every day. I think it was you that talked about one of your students who was a surgeon who practiced every day and every morning, like
Or,
they would come out of uh, their surgery or in prep. I remember this, it was a couple years ago, and I loved this post. And you were talking about how that was their
mhm,
time to reset their mind and to use. And this is something I'm so into too, especially with teenagers. I use guitar and
or,
practice and focus and discipline as this. It's a life skill developer almost. It's a meditation. It's something that's just for
absolutely.
you. There's so many things about it that aren't just like playing an instrument. It's
Yeah.
much bigger, and I love that you are giving them that reality up front of
Yes.
expectation and hey, it's a long-term thing, and you're gonna be here however you are, and I'm gonna be okay with that. That's really
Yes.
interesting how that's come to be for you.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's beautiful, the work that you're doing. I mean, obviously you're an extremely successful entrepreneur, but just hearing you talk about your teaching every time I'm struck by the passion and the insight. So that's beautiful, the work that you're doing, Eric. But yeah, the reason I talk about that with adults is because that they are responsible for themselves. And so if there's no client anymore to work with, you can't help them no matter how good the lessons are. I always tell them it's the same reason why nobody can continue going consistently to the gym. It's probably the same reason they're stuck in other areas in their lives. And so it's interesting with children and teenagers, it's popular in our industry to talk about all these benefits that this will have for school and in the rest of your life and character development and so on. With adults, I find it's talked about somewhat less. I find it's even more relevant. It is their biggest obstacle if you can't solve these limiting beliefs about, I'm too old, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough time. In fact, everybody has enough time. There are people way more successful than us that have done more with way less resources. And so, but at that moment, if I cannot reach them, if they have that limiting belief, that is okay. I have no judgment in that
Mhm.
moment. But I can make a very bold claim that I can substantiate. If you do not practice, you just show up to our lesson, our 45-minute lesson or whatever it is, we'll make more progress than if you practiced 2 or 3 hours a day in those programs out there because of these strategies I've developed my entire life. And so I've solved this puzzle the same way that like a personal trainer might. So they have this time cost. If they have no time to practice at all, they can show up, spend this time with me. Now, will something take 2 years instead of 5 or 6 months because they're not practicing? Yes, but it's a goal that would have taken 3 to 5 years. And so for a low time cost, I can deliver this very unusual result. First of all, if their life never gets any better. But secondly, most of the time, the good times actually roll around again. They just didn't know it at the time when they were in the midst of their family thing, work thing, whatever it may be. And so as you get to, I mean, it really is coaching. It's working on the level of the person. And I think it's even more important for adults than for children a
You
lot of
know,
the time.
I hope that 50,000 piano teachers listen to this conversation because speaking of limited beliefs, one of the things that I've experienced through, building fonds and running my own studio and working a lot with arts organizations that help with music teachers is like when I'm listening to you, I'm hearing this very fresh, very impassioned, very whatever the opposite of burned out is, focused. You know exactly what you want to do. You can
Thank you.
speak really clearly to it. And it's really refreshing because how do I say it? There, something we see every day is something that would be like this. Okay, I'm listening to this right now, and well, yeah, well, he was a prodigy, and oh, of course, and he's from New York, so of course he can charge more than other people, and he's got this base of all these people. So he started in New York, and I hear this
I
stuff
just
a lot.
interject and say I'm definitely not a prodigy.
Oh,
Seriously.
okay,
So,
okay. Well, he's is this high. Got you. Sorry,
but yeah,
I'm just throw. But this is how
sure,
maybe
sure.
someone would hear it,
Right,
and
right, right.
it this is
Absolutely.
where the limited beliefs come from, to say I could never build a business like this. And
Right.
I've known you. I've watched you building this business, and
Yes.
it is extremely successful. It's I would say that it's easily one of the most successful private group piano programs in the United States. And it's taken
Thank
you a
you so
long time
much.
to do, and it's taken a lot of courage, and you've gotten coaching. And so
Yes.
it's one I really believe that every teacher who fell in love with music, whether it's recreational music, pop, jazz, classical, it doesn't matter. There is a niche that will bring you joy to share. There is a gift and a way that you can share that gift with the world to make a really meaningful impact, but also a great living. Right?
Yes.
There is a path to what maybe I'm just going to make video game music and that's my dream in life. There's so many ways to
Sure.
do it. And I love talking to people who have found a way to do it and I want everyone listening to know it's not easy. It takes a lot of time. I've seen you get help, and I think we should, talk about
Yes.
your journey, but also
Sure.
that yes, you're in New York, you can charge more. New York costs a lot more, right? So if I were building a business where I grew up in the Shenandoah Valley, a house cost 1/5 the price of a house where I'm living here in Seattle. So if I could maybe charge
Sure.
half, I don't know, or I'd build an online business. So I just want to encourage people that are listening to you about those things, about your journey, about the fact that you could do this. You would have done this anywhere, right? You happen to be in a certain geography,
Sure.
and it does help. It's good to acknowledge that because you have this base of like an intellectual base, of a professional base, especially for your particular niche, but also
Mhm.
that you built it intentionally. And now it's more, I see you traveling all over the country to see your students, right? You
Sure.
post, you have these meetups on the West Coast or wherever it is you're going. So Just an
Well, they come
encouragement.
to me actually, thankfully.
Oh, okay.
But
They all come to you.
I travel around with my wife,
Oh, okay.
just for fun at this point. But yeah, I mean, see, that's an investment in yourself too. I'm not saying everybody should move to New York, but I've been here since 2007. It's been a while, and I had no money for a long time, which I was totally cool with. My dad was like, "You can still be a software engineer, you know." And he was worried. I thought I'm good. I've got money for rent, food, subway, and expensive lessons with my teacher on the Upper West Side. And I didn't think that was strange at all. I was completely content. But my piano and teaching bars were kind of maxed out at that point, and then I just had to have a little spark in terms of the business end for things to take off. So, and I also stopped teaching children and teenagers, and I stopped teaching regular in-person lessons altogether a little over 2 years ago. So, with virtual lessons, I mean, the playing field in some senses is equalized. I mean, in theory, if you show up online, you're good. You can create something. You can have people in New York reach out to you. Although you are right, there definitely is some advantage to being here. Clients want to come here. Even my coach would want to come here. So, your environment is also, and don't do something that's totally unreasonable, but there's a sweet spot. There's skill to choosing your environment.
Mm.
I'll say that.
Can you go back one step?
Oh yeah,
You talked
absolutely,
about this,
absolutely.
and could you take a minute and talk about your business? Just an overview of what you offer. You said there was a
Sure.
spark, and then I know. Can you just talk about if someone were coming to study with you, they've
Yes.
discovered you generally through, is it word of mouth or social media? Take me through that journey of, let's say that I
Sure.
wanted to work with you. What would that look like? Where did I
Yeah.
find you?
Well, keep in mind that these are now products of my crazy imagination, and it's iterated. It wasn't always like this. So now it seems kind of crazy and all over the place in some sense. There's a few different paths, there's a few different ways to work with me at this point. So if somebody reached out to us at random, and they're through all different sources, we have social media, we have ads on Google and Meta, we have SEO. We have Thumbtack is where I actually first blew up, like just about 7 years ago. Uh, I mean, we also have word of mouth. I just also connect with people at this point. So there's just all these different sources that people come from. I think for social media, which we can come back to, my strategy really is in just this whole, document, don't create, right? Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm very passionate about my craft. So I practice a lot and then I share it and I do things. I just share what it is that I'm doing. That's very difficult for competitors to duplicate because they're not necessarily practicing 4 hours a day at this point. So anyway, we can come back to that. So if somebody reaches out, usually whatever source they're reaching out through, I'll send them over to Ashley, who's my assistant, my executive assistant, who's now full time, and she will send them these long informational texts that have all of the pricing up front, all of the asks up front, long term, weekly, if they're comfortable with signing on, if the call goes well, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the tack we've taken just because we have way too many people reaching out all the time through all these different sources. If somebody texts me directly, I'll take a screenshot, I'll send it over to Ashley. And then after, if they are interested in having an interview with me, then she'll ask them qualifying questions. The qualifying questions are just to make sure people have read the text. And secretly, the intention is to scare almost everybody away. Sometimes people, they don't need weekly long-term lessons. They don't need very serious lessons, or they're not detail oriented, in which case they'll say they don't want to read all this text that we sent, which is okay. We've served them by having us mutually realize that this isn't the best fit at this time. But we have free content on YouTube that they can watch, which is extremely valuable. So then if they then get onto a call with me, that's when I give them the mindset training. I want to hear in depth their life story. I'll ask them like, where did you grow up? How was it? And what are you doing now? What were all the highlights in between, personally, professionally, musically? So we go through this whole process. And then in terms of different ways they can work with us, I have four wonderful, amazing teachers, one of which you met. Melissa, actually, you met apparently at a
At
conference.
NCKP, so
Right,
nice.
right.
Yeah.
So she is basically our sole in-person regular location, which is out of my my studio. So she teaches our group program, which I call my strategic teams there. And then there's virtual private lessons with the three other teachers. There's my online mastermind, which is called Pianist Collective. So that's yet another crazy thing. And then I found such joy, Eric, since the last time that we spoke in working privately again with
I've seen that.
students, clients, and so on. So there's regular virtual lessons, and people will fly out from different parts of the country to do in-person intensives with me from Seattle, from Florida, from Utah, and people in the city, 2-day one-on-one in-person intensives. Or recently, I just started doing group intensives. Then the one other thing that I started doing recently that we might talk about is I started receiving more and more compliments from students in all different types of work, software engineers, attorneys, doctors, artists, creatives, entrepreneurs, investors, founders, that our work together was really, really helping them in their businesses, in their lives, because I think differently from anybody else that they've met. So I started a few months ago doing something even crazier. I started doing work that's more purely outside of piano, even though I still keep my identity as a pianist. And so some clients are now with me either in combination with piano or completely separate, just to do work on helping them to reach the next level in their businesses, next level of success or income or freedom while becoming happier along the way, which is what it is that I've tried to do. So, and just to wrap up, in terms of that coaching work I might do with clients, strangely, I have a completely different process also, where if I just connect organically with a given person, it's a totally different process. We just connect, we learn about each other's lives. It might be like just a brief call. And then if it seems like I might be able to serve them, I ask like, oh, would you like any help with that? And then we might schedule a 2-hour coaching call, which may or may not lead to work together. So I'm just always creating and combining and moving around different things. I think another entrepreneur would probably think like, oh, this is my process and it's going to be this, or this is how these two things will work together. I'm always combining and recombining and changing and transmorgifying whatever it may be in all sorts of different ways. Because as you said near the beginning, I think of business as art. It's all creativity. If you don't like the life that you're living, I challenge that you're just not being creative enough. And
Hmm.
that's part of what we've cultivated in our piano playing. You want to be successful, put in consistent, meaningful inputs over seemingly unfathomably long lengths of time. And we're doing it. We've been doing it. We've been doing it much longer than attorneys and doctors most of the time. So we just haven't applied those skills to our actual lives most of the time, which is strange.
We know, I feel like we could make an 8-hour conversation about, and maybe we'll do that
That'd be
sometime.
great.
We have to come
Yeah,
up
for
because
sure.
there was, and I just want to go back, and I'm sure I'm going to miss a couple things, but I want to just touch on a couple key points. And the first one is an introduction is you have built an operational structure that is a real business, that is very agile, but also very creative and ever shifting. And I'm sure that comes with some failures and some tests. I'm sure that's part of
Oh
the
yeah.
journey. But
Yes.
let's just talk through it. And so you began by saying, I think I counted 5 channels at what we call at your top of funnel, where people could find
Hmm.
you through your organic social media posting, where you're just documenting yourself playing on a public park piano, or you're
Sure.
documenting yourself memorizing a piece of music on a
Or just
train,
practicing.
or just
Most
practicing.
of the content is me just recording my performing through pieces or something.
Yep.
And like people have seen some of it, maybe if anybody's listening to this, I have literally thousands and thousands of unshared clips on my phone because I'm prioritizing practice and family. And then if I'm out of energy, I just don't post anything that day. But just literally one clip could be like hundreds of little clips that I choose.
Oh, this is,
Could
yeah.
be.
Thanks for, and stop me as I go through this, because what I heard was really, oh, I'm sure it
Mhm.
would feel overwhelming, but it shouldn't. And something will, as a starting point, will really grab. You said we have great content on YouTube. you mentioned that you blew up in Thumbtack, which is really interesting. I
Yes.
haven't met many people that got a lot of meaningful lift through
Sure.
Thumbtack, but it sounds like
Yeah.
you really, again, you had your niche, you probably stood out
Yeah.
from the crowd, and you made it work. You mentioned
Mm.
that you're doing Google and Meta ads. Another thing, I've
Yes.
talked to very few people who have done great with those because, and you're a higher ticket, serious
Yes.
business and teacher providing great value. So I'm sure that's a big part of it. And if you're listening to this, you don't need to go out and start running ads, doing Facebook or Meta ads, do a YouTube. You can really start at any of these. But the big thing is you started your conversation by saying you were young in 2007 in New York City, getting
Yes.
by, and you were totally happy doing what you were doing. With that
Yeah.
base, and you built from that. And then if you hear the story of how you talk, everything is like, and then I did this thing because it sounded interesting. And then I was using these,
Sure.
you mentioned this thing about entrepreneurship and uh, executive, almost executive coaching, and how
Sure.
much studying. For me, it was the same thing when I got into classical
Hmm.
guitar and really got interested in the different mindsets of because I started playing classical music very late. I was in
Yes.
college when I started, and I had great hands, but I'd never played classical music, so I really struggled, and it was practicing many, many hours a day with great teachers, but a lot of mindset work. That time and those skills I learned helped me build a tech company more than anything else I learned, more than my business degree or
Hmm.
my music degree and my time studying seriously. That's how I solve problems. You know, putting a couple brackets
Absolutely.
around a really hard measure and playing it really focused. That occurs
Yes.
in life. Where are your really hard measures that you need to focus on? And gosh, you mentioned I take all these video clips and I don't post them because I'm prioritizing, my family and my practice. So
Hmm.
important. People get caught up focusing on things that don't matter. And not that this doesn't matter, but when you're at the level that you are in your business, you are constantly prioritizing. And the ability to say, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this tonight. It was a cool clip of me playing, but I'm going to go hang out.
Yeah.
That is the key because I think what people can take away from this is yes, you can grow your business into something awesome and creative and flexible. And it can be what you want it to be. It can bring you great joy, but also that it can be uniquely your own and it can be your own journey. And if you're not happy, if you're not feeling joy from it, you got to create. You got to do something else. So
Yes.
I loved what you were talking about. I think we could go into all of it in great detail and
Yeah,
maybe
there's so
some.
many great threads here, Eric.
Yeah.
I'm usually a habitual note taker. I'm not taking any notes, so
No.
I'm going to lose so many of them. I could have so many conversations with you, frankly,
Yeah, and I'm
about any
sure.
of this.
Yeah, you're going to need to
Yeah.
come back, and we'll need to do more of this, especially
Okay.
on the mindset
Well, thank
thing.
you.
But I just feel like if I were listening to this at the beginning of my career, and actually, I'll just share a quick story. When I was first starting out teaching, I had a older, wiser friend. We were at dinner one time, and he was talking about a couple that he knew that had just spent a year traveling around the world. They were artists, they were creatives, and he said something to me. He said, the difference between those two that just had this experience, and the people who don't, is that they just did it. And I
Hmm.
that and that was the concept that just really stuck with me. It's like, oh, you just got to do it. You don't know how
Sure.
this thing's going to turn out, and you start exploring these things, and you do these things. Next thing you know, you've got a team. You've got an executive assistant who's helping you, and you've got other
Yeah.
teachers. And then you said you're coming, and I'm in the exact same place that you are. I
Hmm.
am loving one-on-one lessons again. And I don't know,
Yeah.
it's like a seasonal thing where you're like, oh my gosh, I love to connect with one person and be part of their journey and be completely organic about it. Like who knows what we're going to do today? It could be wild. So I feel
Exactly.
I feel so much alignment in what you're saying, but I hope that anyone listening to this just feels encouraged and they walk away from it thinking, oh, what's the thing? How can I make my journey a little more joyful? What is that I'm really interested in? And also,
Yes.
if you're listening, remember what David said. You're turning away almost all the people who inquire to work with you, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to scare them off. And that says a couple
Well,
things.
because we can't serve them right now. So we serve them by having us both mutually realize this isn't the right time. Could change in the future, but for now, you can watch all the stuff that's available for free.
And what you're saying is there is an abundance of interest, right? And there's
Hmm.
also there comes a point when you get to be selective. And that's if you're not at that point, that's fine. You can we all are at a point we have to
Hmm.
take we can get, but honing in that vision. And maybe that's a cool thing for you to talk about is how you
Sure.
built this structure and this concept and how it morphed over time. A little bit about how that journey was to be. Because I know you had some help along the way too, right?
Do you mean my current vision or how things came to be this way,
Sure.
or?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I like I was saying earlier, I just have so many threads. Like I just maybe wanted to give a quick comment on as well too. So if I even lose the question you just
No, it's
asked me,
fine. We're just
just
here to
just bring me
chat.
back to it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing that occurs to me is I want to emphasize again, I started teaching when I was 13. And so that's like I think I had unusual ability, admittedly, but I just put in my time for a long time. I iterated. I had a great teacher. But then I spent a lot of time iterating these methods on my own because the methods that I've developed, they really are, I can call it my methodology, strategies, mindsets. They're really just the way that I practice all these different universes of, logical, strategic decision making. There's my own progressive take on traditional musical concepts like technique, musicality. There's mental practice by practicing away from the piano. There's logistical planning. There's performance practice and so on. And so I just continued putting in my time, Eric. I actually, I don't know that I would recommend everybody to do this, but to be honest, I've never attended a teacher conference. I don't think that's a good or bad thing. It's just something that somehow worked for me. I sometimes felt some social pressure because I would see people getting their doctorates and professorships and going to conferences and I was always happy for them. But then, the small part of me was thinking like maybe I should be doing more. Like maybe this is wrong. Like I'm not sure if this is leading to anything. These little projects. So there was a little part of me that was doubtful at the time, but I'm really good at putting in those consistent, meaningful inputs. And so that's something I want to bring us back to too. So in terms of how did I build this vision? I mean, we did our time as children. This it's a difficult, challenging thought, but it's one of my talking points, I think. We're all talking about teaching. Those of us that are more in the know, we're talking more about business. Are you putting in your time at the piano as well too? Are you putting in consistent, meaningful inputs where it really matters? And so I kept putting in those inputs in piano, in teaching, in thinking, and it just kept compounding and iterating. And this wisdom can get lost in all the cliches. We've heard it so many times before. Can you just continue putting them in? So you feel a little bit down today, design a system, be creative so that the flame reignites itself. Like for instance, I've been very inspired by David Goggins. I think he has a lot. He actually has deep wisdom. He's not just like
Oh, I
a
got you.
don't be a pansy. He's got deep wisdom. He's all about strengthening the mind. He's all about being uncommon amongst the uncommon. Why am I at the gym at 4 in the morning and it's me all alone doing mental practice? Because nobody else is going to be there. So I've got to do it. I'm willing to put in the inputs consistently. It's not about the notoriety. It's not about the physical achievement for him. He's just always making the mind stronger. And so I'm always cultivating that asset. I'm more consistent than most anybody that I know. I'm constantly making my mind stronger and stronger with positive thoughts so that I don't burn out because I burned out in the past. So then I learn from that. So all that will compound over time. And this whole being uncommon amongst the uncommon, I love being like the one person with sheet music on the subway, or the one person at the gym, or the one person that is continuing to find a creative way to practice, even when work or family is really busy. So I think those mindsets served me really well. And that's when I think I mentioned about 7 years ago when I blew up on Thumbtack, I was basically primed and ready for opportunity to find me because I had cultivated my craft for a very long time. And I was just kind of open. And then you'd mentioned that you didn't know a lot of people that I guess had found success through Thumbtack. For other people, it's probably not going to be Thumbtack, but it might be something else. So I just want to talk about this, briefly because I think it relates to how I've built what I've built. So we all know that Meta, Google, et cetera, they just keep changing randomly. The platforms keep on changing. Well, Thumbtack has changed many, many times. It has a really big music lesson scene, as probably many of you know. And at the time, it was kind of like a battle royale. Like people, somebody could just create a request. And then I didn't think about anything in terms of business. I just intuitively was like, oh, you can just reach out to people, whoever's the speediest and most professional and does great work. Like those are the people that they'll book a trial lesson with. And I realized that there was opportunity there. And so I reached out quickly. I had no reviews at the time. People had 30, 45-star reviews. So I collected reviews from past people. Reviews are so important. It's hard to overemphasize. If somebody has a doctorate in piano and you don't, like I don't, I decided to develop my methods on my own instead of continuing with schooling. And you have many 5-star reviews about how you've transformed people's lives. People are probably going to study with you or they're because you have results. The degree is fantastic, but what's most important to the potential student is whether you can really help them. And so then I reached out to people, I did powerful work with them, and then I was like, oh, I just need to request reviews about what it is that we've done together. And I remember talking to colleagues. I don't fault any of these colleagues, but I was like, hey, you guys should do this. This is legitimately like winning the lottery. Like I think so, really, because these people you can really reach out, help them ethically, request reviews, have more people reach out. Nobody listened to me because everybody was concerned with how much it cost at the time. And leads were maybe like $6 or $10.
Wow.
And I was like, you guys, it's like thousands of dollars if it's one student that you can feed your families with, you know? And so now, some of you might be thinking, well, I was just in the right place at the right time. True, to some extent, but other people could have also taken advantage. They didn't at that time.
Yeah.
And I just saw the return was so much higher. Everybody was afraid about how much the ads cost when it was really negligible. So if you find something, some part of you is afraid of the cost, ask yourself, what actually is the cost and what actually is the return?
Mm.
I thought it was a fluke, Eric. I was like, oh, I was just lucky. But the what I built confidence in over time was that I could spot these opportunities over and over again. It is a skill that can be cultivated. So anyway, so that's what I
No.
have to say about
Well,
that.
I love that. And really
Yeah.
what I hear you saying is first off is that you were first in line to reach out. Speed and professionalism and confidence are huge. I think from what and cost, another limiting mindset. Oh my gosh, $6 for a lead. If you close 5% of those, that's the best deal in the whole world. If you close 1 in 20, that's an
Yes.
so that's what I think it is. And this is kind of something that I've come up with over the years of trying to not coach, but try to encourage people to say, "Oh my gosh, you're really into this. You should be able to make a living. Let's talk about what you're charging." And
Hmm.
it's then because this is another thing that plays right into it is a fear of charging for the value that you're providing. I think it's an anxiety of the reality is people don't want to pick up the phone or do the thing. Hey, I
Sure.
saw that you're looking for a teacher. I want to hear all about what you're looking for. This is what I do. To make a
Yeah.
connection, I think people avoid that. I think people avoid saying, "Yeah, well, this is how much I charge for lessons."
Hmm.
No, that's it. That's just how much I charge. End of
Yeah.
that sentence. And then
Yeah.
taking a breath and being like, "Oh," because most of the time, if someone's serious, they're like, "Oh, okay," and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
can't believe what I just said," or all these things. This is my when I was prepping for this talk, that
Sure.
conversation of the difference between those people who went around the world that did it and those that don't is they did it. You do the things that are required. You know what they are, and maybe you don't want to hear them. You just said, I love that you wrapped it up saying, I told my friends about this. And I was like, and they didn't do it. Most people just won't do it. There is not a shortage of students that can pay you. There's not a
Hmm.
shortage of people who are interested in whatever your little micro niche is, right? I'm into early 2000s avant-garde jazz. There's people out there that want to learn how to do that, right? Whatever it is.
Sure.
It's looking at it like a business, being creative about the business and I'm trying to figure out from listening to you,
Yeah.
there's this through line of you love to play piano and to practice. You love to
Yes,
improve yourself. You love the mental aspects of it. As I'm listening to you, I'm like, I'm so bought in. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so excited about all this
sure.
stuff too. Like, and I think other people, but it's just because it's authentic. You're just saying, this is what I love
Yes.
to do. This is where I'm my best. I've built a business out of this to help other people who want to experience this thing, who want to use their journey of music as a way to develop their minds and their focus, their creativity that they can bring to their life. Like, this is an easy sell to the right person.
Hmm.
And so I love
Yeah.
everything that you said. And to keep in mind,
Thanks, Eric.
most people aren't going to do it. Right. And so,
Yeah, and that's okay. I
yeah,
don't think any less of them. I think a lot of people that
exactly.
are successful, even the people that are, let's say, spiritual, sometimes they can be more arrogant than the wealthy people. They're like, I know so much, you should live your life this way. You
Yeah.
can live your life however you want. This is just a way, if you feel like working together or you feel like being open to another idea, it's just another way to play the game if you want to.
Can I ask you two
Yeah,
questions?
go ahead.
Well,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I love that non-attachment to the outcome seems to be kind of a theme, or
Oh,
a
yeah.
non-attachment to what other people want to do. Are you a naturally, what's the word? I guess I would say like a non-anxious person? Because it seems like you seem very
That's
much
a great
comfortable
question.
with, oh, you do your thing. I'm not the person for you. Because
Yeah.
I'm trying to, if I were listening to this and I was, you know, somewhere and I'm teaching and I'm undercharging and I know I'm undercharging and I can't get new students because of it, all these, and I'm
Yes.
inspired, but I'm nervous. I'm like, what do I do? It is scary for me to call people. Do you, it's
Yes.
easier to just say, oh, just turn it off. Don't care what people think. Do your own thing. Um,
Yeah.
and also, but you're not really part of the piano teaching community. You said you don't go to the conferences, which,
Yeah, I don't.
that and that's just your thing. You're doing your own thing. That I don't know this, but I'm assuming that also puts you subject to scrutiny, where people you're not part of
Sure.
the gang of how things are normally done. You're
It
doing your own.
could.
I don't know this. I'm just wondering. But
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, how would do you
Right.
in your mind that because you probably
Right.
experienced yeah
Well, first of all, no, I'm not a naturally non-anxious person. Without, I mean, these are very, very, very long stories, but I've been through some stuff, as I'm sure everybody else has too, and including, well, I won't go into, but I've been through some stuff, and it absolutely is a skill. If you approach it the same way as diligent practice of the piano, I really believe that, I mean, within reason, you can really practice your way out of anything. I have literally, if I'm, I've had periods in my life where I was honestly overrun by anxiety, OCD, like other things like that, which is, I think it's typical for serious pianists, classical pianists to some extent, and then other things too, personally speaking. And I had to literally rewire my brain, Eric. As in, if there's a negative, like for instance, somebody that's stuck in traffic, and you tell them like, "Hey, look, you should calm down and not swear because you just calm down." That usually doesn't work. Let's say that they're open-minded enough that they're like, "Okay, I'm trying to calm down. It's not working. It just doesn't work. This calming down stuff doesn't work." That's like if your finger is raising and you've done this for years and you try to relax it and you're like, "Well, it's still raising. It's not working." Well, it takes practice. Why would it not take practice? If something piano wise takes practice, why would a thought that you've been thinking every single time there's that input and you've been thinking that for years or decades, why would that not take practice to rewire? But the question is, do you have the discipline? And are you creative enough? Because discipline's a limited resource because motivation waxes and wanes. Are you creative enough to design a system so that you can use your discipline and mind to consistently put in those meaningful inputs? Every time you get stuck in traffic, you think something that's rational and positive, like, well, when I get mad, it decreases my quality of life. I treat myself more poorly. I treat my family more poorly. I'm going to choose to be grateful. For instance, not this isn't just a motivational thing. This is a practice as serious, more serious than the piano.
let's
But can
just go
you
back
do
to it.
that? Yeah.
You're stuck in traffic.
Yep.
Go through the process
Exactly.
again. But it's worth repeating. This is so cool. So say it again.
Can you? I mean, can you do that each time that it comes up, and can you master the delay? And when I say the delay, that means, as we know from piano playing, your technique is not just transformed in that practice session, but Sometimes it takes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, and sometimes years, because there are some neural pathways that can take a while to rewire, so to speak. And the delay is you practice feeling calmer in that moment, saying something positive, and you don't feel any better, or you don't perceive you feel any better. Maybe you feel like 0.5% better and you can't really perceive it. Well, you still put in the inputs. I'm somebody that has done that. It's exceedingly difficult, to be honest. But
So the
there
practice
there
is
have been
to
yeah,
you
sure.
observe an emotion, right? You
Hmm.
experience something, you observe emotion, and I would love for you to take a
Yeah.
moment. You've said it, a consistent and meaningful inputs. I think
Hmm.
clarifying that for people who are listening, this is because this is becoming kind of a core of everything you're talking
Sure.
about. And so you observe this emotion, it makes you angry. You get flush, or you're angry, or responding in the physical reaction. You observe it, and then you said you respond in a way that is positive. So you shift the response, and even
Sure.
without the expectation that it's going to change, you're putting the same expectation that you do on piano practice, which is that it takes time to change. And so today, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still pissed. Yeah, I'm still angry in this moment, but I'm grateful that I'm able to
It
be.
could be you're
Yeah.
0.3% less angry and you just do not perceive it, you know? And this is even the most diehard skeptics, we usually agree that the placebo effect is a well documented thing that
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah, this is
We have broken
science.
heart syndrome, somebody elderly that passes away and then their partner passes away shortly afterwards. So our thoughts really do have an impact on our realities, whether you believe in the full-on woo-woo stuff or you believe purely in the scientific rational side. Even if it's purely the scientific rational side, I mean, that's just one drug, for instance, over this one little trial. How powerful, how devastatingly powerful are thoughts that you think consistently every day, multiple times a day, for decades on end? You can't even comprehend how powerful that is. And then what impact? So, those diehard skeptics, if people think extremely stressful, anxious thoughts all day long for many years, does that have a detrimental effect on health? Everybody's, oh, yeah, that does. Well, what happens if you think positive thoughts and you think that consistently for years on end? And then you feel just as bad in the moment at first. I've had times in my life, the most difficult times in my life, Eric, where I've practiced thinking those thoughts, and then a normal person would have stopped because they would have just been like, "This isn't working. I won't even bother." I didn't have anything left to lose. I was like, "I'm still going to continue to put in these inputs of positive thoughts." And then after a few weeks, I felt no change. After 1 or 2 months, I felt no change. After 3 or 4 months, I felt no change. But after 5 months, I felt a slight change. And then afterwards, things improved very, very rapidly. That's how I got out of some of the darkest times in my life. And I know that you weren't even asking about that. You
No,
weren't
but
even, but
no, but
yeah,
it's so you were able to. How did you
yeah.
learn? Where did you see a light at the tunnel? What gave you the concept or the ideas? I'm feeling terrible. Like for me right now, I sit down when
Sure.
I practice, and
Hmm.
I'll open up my sheet music, stuff that I know well, and I'll play one note, and I'm so mad at my tone because my nails
Hmm.
aren't the right length, or my vibrato's
Sure.
not good. And I just get pissed because I'm like, why did I build a
Hmm.
company that took me this that I couldn't practice for? I would say, why
Yeah.
did I have kids? Oh my gosh. And I'm just sitting and I close the music, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had 30 minutes to practice. And I just decided to just get angry at myself instead of practicing.
Sure.
So yeah, it's like how did you know in that moment? I'm so grateful to just have a moment at the bench. And or there's
Sure.
so many, what caused this kind of creating a
Yeah.
flywheel of positive thought to interact with emotion? Because I feel like that's kind of what
Yeah. I
you're.
think it was hitting rock bottom, frankly. So everybody here that's listening has been at the worst point or near the worst point in their lives. And then that's a choice at that point. I was like, I don't have anything left to lose. Let me run this pure experiment and just try. And what you're
Yeah.
describing, I mean, first of all, you can do the things that we just said, or anybody could do the things that we just
Yeah.
said. But also, you don't want to force something that isn't there. And so I might take a very long walk and just do mental practice away from the instrument. It's what is actually going to serve me best over the longer term. And so that's where the creativity comes in. How can you make this joyful? Can you do something else Can you move things around, not just within your practice session, but outside of your practice session, solving the puzzle of your entire life so that things are advancing and moving forward and you're feeling maximum joy and fulfillment? And then can you do that when you do not see the external world rewarding you, whether in the form of piano results, more in your bank account, and you can continue to put in the inputs either without any loss in enthusiasm or just with that same level of consistency? I think that's the thing that's worth repeating over and over again because humans are so forgetful. You just, if you know it's a meaningful input, can you just find all these different creative, joyful ways? And then sometimes maybe it's not maximally joyful, but somehow you still somehow get it in and you feel really good about yourself at the end of that day. It's a solvable logic problem.
Could you just discuss the concept of consistent, meaningful inputs? Just kind of
Yeah.
go back a step because I think that that seems to be a big part of who you are and everything we're talking about. And I really like it. Can you discuss
Yeah.
that?
I think somehow it's just happening in this conversation. Maybe I just get on a talking
Yeah,
point and it
yeah,
just kind of sticks in my brain because, and and maybe because I'm consistently saying this throughout this conversation, maybe people will remember it because it's
yeah.
easy to
I
listen
hope
to an
so.
episode and I don't even. So, well, I mean, you can put in consistent inputs and they may or may not be meaningful. Sometimes I have this little framework of designing containers or hypothesizing containers. So, for example, the piano in general, it can receive inputs and we have deliberate practice. We have inputs that maybe are more helpful or less helpful. But in general, if you have good mentorship, if you have good knowledge, if you continue to put in certain number, it's not just about the quantity, but that's the possible container. There can be many subcategories, but the piano is a possible container where if you continue to practice it, that will compound on itself exponentially over time, assuming that the inputs are good, hopefully. And if you want to grow your business, I mean, it could be how much social media that you've posted. It could be how many people you've connected with. It could be how many people you've reached out to. It could be how many of a given article that you've written. And you can hypothesize, and then you try to be a little bit emotionally detached, like you just observe the results. So after a few months, then you kind of see like, oh, did this produce a meaningful result? I'm going to give one example, and again, I'm not. So for instance, the teacher conferences and everything. I don't think it's a good or bad thing that I haven't gone to any. I'm not opposed to it. It just hasn't been.
Yeah.
It hasn't been. In fact, for me, it was better to be on my own. I think I would have been too influenced by other people's ideas, or I might have felt lesser than for whatever reason. But to your point, like quite a bit while back, I don't. Yeah, there may be people like if you build something bigger, you're going to have people that aren't on board with what it is that you're doing. But if you're authentic in your content and everything, it's not an accident that you'll attract dream clients, dream students, because people watch your content and then they won't reach out if they don't like you. They won't reach out if some part of their personality doesn't resonate with you. But if I show that I'm hardworking, I'm always trying to improve, I'm creative, I'm innovative, I'm unusual, I'm a high performer, well, I attract those people. So you can call it magic or not. I actually like to lean into the magic because I also think music, we can just explain it purely logically, but there's something that's also beyond about it as well. So, okay, I'm going to confess to you, I've now lost the original question that you've asked me.
No, you
So,
nailed it. I was
yeah,
the question, and you did a great job,
yeah.
was the
Oh,
concept of
oh, but this is a meaningful inputs, was
yeah,
it? Oh, that's
yes.
right. Okay, so then just briefly, for instance, there are Facebook groups of all these different, adult learners, parent groups. Like if you're teaching kids, it might be in your neighborhood. If you're teaching adults, I mean, everybody knows like all those adult learner groups with all the different rules and I could choose to post in those because a lot of people do. An adult student creates a request. Oh, I was just thinking about teacher, and like 20 different teachers have posted, like, I teach lessons, I teach lessons. I don't think that that's bad. I don't think that's wrong of anybody to do. But when I look at that, I think like that's probably for me not going to get the student that I'm looking for. So I could test it. I could post every day or whatever the group rules allow for a certain length of time but I've tried a little bit in the past, but it didn't get me the type of student that works best for me. And so if you've done something, and this is something where you have to be really honest with yourself, if you've done something, you've actually been consistent, you've actually posted every week or every day or whatever it may be, it has not generated a return for you after, I don't know, 6 months, you have to decide that's probably not the right container for you, or you're going to have to iterate something in the next, like it could, but it's very incremental. There's likely some other opportunity for you right now where if you put in those consistent inputs there, that will be more meaningful for you. That could be. And also
Mm,
don't underestimate quantity. People so it's like to be a really, really good serious classical pianist. I mean, people are not practicing like half an hour a day. And so I'm not saying anybody has to do this, but with content, I mean, sometimes we'll post 3 YouTube shorts a day and Ashley will repost them on all the different platforms. That might seem overwhelming, but it's something that I've worked up to. And I had to get over a fear of embarrassing myself. People are going to judge me. There's like, Juilliard professors in my Facebook friends list. But because I'm willing to fail, I'm willing to embarrass myself, I'm willing to be criticized, opportunities will find me. Many more students find me, many more clients find me. I thought nobody would take me seriously, but then, for instance, tone bass, something came about
yeah.
with that where I was recognized. I was even I had the chance to play for Sir Stephen Huff and for Garrick Olson relatively recently, and they said some nice things about my playing. And Stephen Huff liked one of my clips of the Revolutionary Etude, and I'm just like what? And then one part of me is like, oh no, he must see the other clips that I post because he follows me on Instagram now, which is bizarre. It's like a surreal dream, and that's because I've been willing to put myself out there, and then people can always unfollow me if they want.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. Like it or not, on our journey, some people are willing to, my kids, they call it the cringe phase, where you're like, you're
Hmm.
willing to do something that might be embarrassing. Probably won't
Yes.
be, and so being able to say, I'm going to do this thing. Because if you're starting out on a social media journey, you should expect your first stuff to not be polished because you're figuring it out. You're getting comfortable in front of a camera, you're messaging, it takes time. And what you said, you have to have a period of time where like, oh, this actually isn't working. I'm not getting joy from it. It's not, I've been doing it consistently for 3 months, no traction, whatever. Then it's time to explore something else. Most people don't put in the consistent effort to get through that, or they do a bottled version themselves that what they think people will want to see, as opposed to being
Hmm.
really authentic. So I think there's so much to grab onto there as far as that anyone listening can pick up on, which is be consistent, pick your thing, hypothesize where you might, it's fine to say, I don't think that's probably for me. Maybe it will be later, but right now it's just not where I'm feeling. To have this, it's an energy where you feel gravitational alignment or pull to do it. You should follow that. So yeah, I think it was a beautiful way of saying and demonstrating your journey that can really apply to anybody to make you feel happier or more creative and attract the type of people that you want to work with. I mean, we've been on a pretty esoteric journey today, and
Yeah, I think so.
it's been really awesome and very
Thanks
and,
for going on it with
oh
me,
no,
Eric.
I've gotten so much out of it. And is there you
Yeah.
mentioned that you're working with Tone Base. You have some other
Yes.
projects going on right now too, right?
Yeah, I mean, briefly,
Hmm.
I mean, I'd actually gone to the tone-based New York intensive just as a participant, just because I wanted to improve. I didn't realize, I mean, in hindsight, it makes sense. It's mostly really serious amateurs and so on. There were some professional pianists and so on. But I mean, I was like, I have to play for Stephen Huff. But then what was interesting was I became very close with Dominic Cayley, who's now he's director of business development
Hmm.
as well as being head of piano at Tone Base. He was promoted recently, and I call him Dom, and I invited him to have dinner. I thought he would say no, but he liked my playing. We got along really, really well. And so that was another opportunity that just kind of fell out of the sky. I wasn't going there to try to land a business deal. I was like, I'm just here to learn. And I think that authentically came across. So if you really are passionate about your craft, if you're authentic to yourself, The right people will find you. I felt like he was like he just fell out of the sky. And then he was very interested in my methods. And I've done 2 live streams with Tone Base now, and I they want me to be a recurring person. The first one was on my logical methodology. It was one of their best received live streams. And then the second one was on mental practice, which was kind of a conversation between me and Dom. And that was even better received than the first one, to be honest. So that just, we're going to continue to collaborate. I'm going to continue to do live streams with them. And they have something like 20 or 25,000 subscribers across all their different instruments. The live stream and streams are like all the different instruments, piano being the biggest one. So yeah, so very, very grateful for that. And then not to mention playing for literally legendary pianists. And as a professional pianist, I have more at stake. I was thinking like, oh, like if this doesn't go well, it could reflect badly. But I think if we're fortunate to be, I don't know, 80, 85, and we can wake up again and be this age, like I just start doing random stuff. Like I might as well just put myself out there. Like I'm not going to think like, man, I wish I'd played it more safe. It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
If nobody else is taking it, then I will.
Yeah. And for what, and let you roll the dice and you
Yeah,
experience the
exactly.
moment and see what you prepare as well as you can, enjoy it. Well, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
And so we're about out of time for today. I want
Yeah.
to have you back on because there's so much many things that we can talk about. I want to make sure we'll share all your
Thanks,
links
Eric.
so people can follow your work and learn more about it. But in closing, is there anything you'd like to share to well, you've already shared a lot, but
I've
is
shared
there
a lot.
is there anything we haven't touched on that you would want to share, with people who are listening, maybe
Hmm.
especially at the onset of their careers? And that's something I'm really hoping to
Sure.
do with this series of conversations is to everything we've aligned on, which is this is an amazing career if you make it one, but
Yeah.
you've got to do it. And hopefully, if you're in grad school and you're listening to this, you're really pumped. Or if you've been teaching for 30 years and you're listening to this, you become really pumped because you can get turned on to this at any time and make that decision to find the joy, to master your mind, which is to make
Yeah.
the choice to show up, to be willing to look like a fool. Like you said
Yeah.
you've said so
Oh
many really
yeah.
powerful things that I could just pull out. Yeah,
Thanks.
you went to an event where a lot of upper level amateur players were playing, and you went as the pro guy, which could have been
Yeah.
that thing where like, oh, of course, I have to be better because they're thinking, but that's
Hmm.
not really what anyone's thinking. It's just what
Yeah.
you were.
There were
That's what,
some other pros there, but
yeah,
it's the percent like for violin or something. I heard they had an intensive. It was like half professionals, half amateurs. But for
yeah.
piano, it was even less. So I'm like, okay,
But just showing up it's a
showing up.
beautiful message. And you,
Yeah.
I think I might share on this episode some books. You keep mentioning deliberate practice, which is about. I mean, I learned about this from this book called Peak. I don't know if that was where you picked up, but
Oh, you know, I'm going to confess, I honestly don't even remember. It was probably a lot of different because I read a book a week at this point. So I'm always reading, I'm always practicing and learning. So I actually, I'm going to be honest with you. I've definitely been recommending David Goggins Can't Hurt Me. You know,
I love it.
it's
That's a
really
great
great.
book.
There's deep wisdom there. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of swear words, so don't read it or get the. There's a clean version which I had to return and get the
Yeah, you
unfiltered
got to get the
version.
real version. Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got on
So
my
I would say
shelf too.
that Make It Stick is a great book
Yeah.
as well, too. And yeah, maybe I'll probably leave it at that for now. I guess since you had asked me if any other thoughts, if anybody's listening and something has deeply resonated with you, find me, reach out to me, David at davidchangmusic.com. Let's connect. Let's have an interesting conversation because I'm really passionate about. I realize I'm not passionate about connecting with everybody, but somebody who's passionate about their craft, who really wants to improve, who has big dreams, that's really fun. And I love one-on-ones.
Yes.
I don't want to go to like a noisy bar with nobody that I know. I'm an introvert that can talk. And so if you want to have a deep conversation and my calendar is not totally filled, then let's talk, let's connect.
Well, that's super kind of you. This has been an
Yeah.
amazing talk, David. Thank you so much for making the time.
No, thank
And
you so much, Eric. You're so generous with your time.
so thanks again for being here. I can't wait to listen back to this and to have you on again. I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface. So appreciate you. Thanks for being here,
So
David. Have a good one.
Thanks, Eric.
You've been listening to the 440 podcast. If you found this helpful, subscribe at Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave a quick rating. It makes a big difference. To learn more about how to run your teaching studio with less stress and more joy, visit fonz.com. I'm Eric Branner. Thanks for being here.